This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome. Today I have Jenn Lynn with me. She's the Executive Director of Up County Community Resources in Montgomery County, Maryland, and she's also a mom. So what I'm hoping to I want people to take away from this conversation is some ways that you can overcome challenges that you may face being a mom, understanding life isn't always going to be rosy, and just juggling mom, wife, self, all of that. And so that's where we want to go with this conversation. Jenn and I have known each other for a while, so it may be we may get off topic. Bear with us.
My ADHD.
So, Jenn, would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself, who you are, and
Yeah, I guess I'll go backwards. Currently, I'm the Executive Director of Up County Community Resources, and I've been there for 6 years. And it's a nonprofit. If you don't know, it's a nonprofit in Upper Montgomery County, which serves adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities. Before that, I worked for an education advocate, and before that, I did 12 years in television news producing. So I've kind of had a few different incarnations of myself. And I still am a musician. I play professionally. I play flute professionally and teach and perform and do public speaking. And I'm tired. That's all.
and public speaking? You do it for yourself and your son as well, right?
Yeah. When Jake is with me, we usually are doing like some type of a police education or police education type things. Otherwise, I do like talks about motivational speaking and a lot of faith-based things like overcoming challenges with faith. And that I kind of have a few different sides to my brain, so I do a couple different topics.
Would you mind sharing a little bit about Jake, who he is, and what his diagnosis?
Okay, yeah. Jake is our son, and right now he is 17 years old, and recently moved to residential school, the Benedictine School in Maryland. And we adopted him at birth. We were able to pick him up. I think he was 12 days old when we got him, and you don't really know. Well, any parent doesn't know what you're going to get when you have a baby, obviously. But there's a few more factors involved when you're adopting because you really don't know. You have no genetic anything. So we discovered at about 2.5 that when we finally had him diagnosed, that at that time he was diagnosed with PDD-NOS, of course, and because he's pretty verbal and super active. But then as things have developed and he's gotten older and matured, we went through phases. He clearly has ADHD. Anxiety disorder is the ruling disability. The autism just, complicates it because it prohibits him from really understanding what's going on. We can try to logically explain to him things about anxiety and what he's feeling and why he's feeling it, but to break that down even more so he can comprehend it, to an autism level, it's tricky. But he's an amazing kid, and he does a lot of, he's done some police training things. We've just kind of fallen into this police teaching role just completely by accident because I called the police. Well, first the neighbors called the police, and then now he was able to verbalize his feelings and his emotions, which is very rare for kids with autism. And the police thought that was a valuable lesson to know and to share with other recruits and those that are out in the community encountering all different folks, on an everyday basis. Now that we're forcing and encouraging people with disabilities of all types to be in the community and be accepted in the community and be active in the community, especially employment wise, and even just for fitness. They're gonna encounter a lot more of us in the years to come. So Jake has a pretty valuable message that he shares with a lot of people, and he's been recognized nationally and his blog has been around the world a few times. So yeah, he's a busy guy, but right now we're kind of chilling while he's at school and trying to just get him over some of his really big fears. Puberty really threw us into a tailspin. Um, it became really, really hard, and he became just unable to cope with change and unable to cope with fear. And fear, my rule of thumb, I don't even know if I've ever shared it with you, Eric, is that I say all emotion of in any single person, it is either rooted in fear or rooted in love. And when you have autism and you cannot understand the world around you and why it's changing and what's going to happen when it changes, I mean, most of your life is rooted in fear. And no matter if you're loved and loved and loved and you know how to love, fear is the ruling body with anxiety disorder, and autism. So he would lash out when he got scared, or he would elope, or he would hurt himself. So it got to a point now that he's 6'3" and 190 pounds that I can't manage him anymore. And his behaviors became very impulsive. Like I would just say a word, like I can't even think of an example right now, but something you would just normally say in a conversation with anybody, and that would cause panic, and he would hurt himself, or he would go in another room and try to hurt himself. And that, then we'll talk about the PTSD and everything else that's happening. It's real. It's real. So
how do you keep your sanity? What do you do for yourself?
well, right now I'm sitting here staring at the ocean, as we discussed. I'm not very good at doing everything for myself. I'm a Taurus. I am much happier doing things for everybody else and working a lot. But when Jake got placed residentially, I really had to figure out who I was, because for much of my life, I identified as a TV news producer. It was very exciting, very, on the cutting edge and very busy and stressful. And I've always identified as being a musician. But then there was this really big piece, I'm married, right? And I have a fabulous husband. And then all of a sudden I became just Jake's mom, because it takes every ounce of you to parent a kid like Jake. And I'm sure many of the viewers know that. I just had to talk with Chris last night. It's like I'm finally feeling like available again. And even some of my girlfriends that we Skype with all the time are like, Jen, you've never even been available in the last 15 years. And I'm like, I know. So I'm really trying to do things that I enjoy. I picked up my music again. Seriously, I'm back in lessons, and I'm playing professionally in a couple of groups. Whoops, I think there's an airplane coming. Oh yeah, it's pulling a thing. And I kind of jumped into a few faith projects, at my church to develop myself and my faith more deeply, and just trying to really be present in every moment. And that makes me happy, because there have been so many moments and so many years where I was there, but I wasn't there. I was there, but in the back of my head, it's like, oh God, don't say that. And, oh, don't make that face. And, oh God, don't say that. Like just trying to prevent the next big behavior, So this is, and that's real, it takes over your whole life. So I can say that it's important for every parent out there to do things for themselves. Every parent has heard it, but applying that is super hard. And I recognize that, and I appreciate that with a lot of parents that I talk to in the disability community. It just takes over for a while.
And how long have you and Chris been together? How long have you guys been married?
Oh my gosh, this June, it's going to be 25 years.
Wow.
I know, this is 25th. Well, we've been together probably 30. Little bit of lived in sin, couple different states, because TV, you move around a lot, so yeah, we got 25 years this year. It's crazy.
It's incredible. So in those 15 years with Jake, right, you said, or a little longer now if he's 17.
Yeah, he's 17. Yep.
What and I don't want you sharing anything you're not comfortable sharing, but what would you say the biggest challenge that you can remember overcoming and you've come through? What would that have been? The most significant?
Do you mean like marriage wise or kid wise?
Well, both. I mean, because you can't have one without the other, right? I mean, or at least I couldn't. I mean,
right. Well, I have to say, just last night, Chris and I were talking about like availability, like what I said, because Chris works a lot. He's still in television, travels a lot, and now that we're back all at home, right, kind of stuck in the house. Excuse me. It's a lot of talking and a lot of revisiting why we got married to begin with, and I'm like, God, this is like really fun, So this is a really just the stress that a disabled child puts on a marriage is really, really hard. And I'm not saying it's different with other kids, regular neurotypical kids, because I don't know. I don't have one. All I have is Jake. Um, so it's just different because we were just saying that like I'm finally getting space in my head for Chris, and thank God that Chris is calm and patient with me because that's how a lot of marriages end. And because one or the other is taking care of the child 24/7 or and there's bitterness and there's
Almost jealousy,
like
right?
say that again.
I mean, almost like jealousy, almost, right? I
It
mean,
is. It really is. And it's funny because even when you have a newborn, that attention starts to shift just because one of you is taking more care of the newborn than you are of your marriage. And that was real. That happened with us because I was not a natural parent. I never even babysat. I'm on the younger end in my family. Um, so I never even had an infant, and I was nervous. I was a nervous mom, and Chris too, he didn't ever babysit, clearly, so we weren't ready for that shift. So that happens, and it's hard, and we work through that. And but now that Jake is like at school, we're kind of realizing, like, I'm like, wow, I almost feel like I have to like reinvent myself again, like who am I really, and who do I want to be, and who do I want to be recognized as in the disability community? Like, where am I going to put my efforts? And we need to, marriage is at the top. We really need to reconnect and make time for each other now that we have time. And thank God Chris is so patient because, and we can joke about it, but we do a lot of laughing. And I'm like, I'm not that person today. Today I'm this person, and he'll just laugh, which is great. So um, it's really hard, I mean, just having a disabled child is super hard. Um, and keeping time for everybody and space for everybody is really hard.
it also sounds, if I'm hearing you correctly, Jen, it also sounds like a really key component is communication, keeping those lines of communication open, even if the conversation is going to be difficult.
Oh my gosh, it is so important. And I mean, I come, my degree is in psychology, so I come from a little bit of that background. And it's really hard because there's a lot of feelings, and Chris and I are both hypersensitive and hyperreactive. So we're both really kind of chilling out, and it's hard to even sometimes you have those conversations and they don't work. Sometimes you say, okay, I need to talk to you about this because I'm feeling like this, and then the other person's like, what are you talking about? I didn't even what, so there's a lot of this kind of happening on two different planets but in the same house thing. Like, I'll interpret something, in my insecurity little pocket where I think I stink at something, or I'll say something as a joke and he'll interpret it as, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. So communication is huge. And even when it's not comfortable, it's really big. Like, and you even got to talk about the things that are not comfortable. You have to talk about feeling neglected, and you have to talk about prioritizing, and you have to talk about sex, and you have to talk about money, and you have to talk, it's just, there's so many keys to making a marriage work, and then you throw in a child and whoo. So it's a lot of, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it when you have that partner.
And so let's shift gears and talk about something happier, right? I'm a big one. I'm always telling people they need to focus on wins, no matter how small they are, but always celebrate them. How do you
Yeah.
feel about
Oh my God, that's how we survived. Because, when you have a kid, everybody goes right into that comparison mode. And especially, you know, right? And even in the area where we live, everybody goes into competition. And I'm like, what the hell? You know, like I can remember being at a mom's group when Jake was, I don't know, 10 months or something. And at this point, he was so hyper and so just disjointed and dysregulated that we literally would go to a mom's group. We would play for about 20 minutes and then we would leave and we would go run a mile. And he would run and push this thing. He was running at 10 months. He never walked. He like did army crawl and then ran. So you can imagine I was very skinny back then, running like 3 miles a day, chasing my kid. But we would go do that and he would have his sensory explosion, right? And then he could go back to the group. But we adopted him and he's a big kid, right? So we had people telling us, you know, oh, well, he's not reading yet, or I mean, at 1 year old, you know, and oh, someone actually told me that they thought I was lying about his age because he's so big and he was so bright, and I really wasn't there when he was born anyway, so how would I know? I'm like, yeah, that was my last group. I'm like, yeah, this is not working, you know, but sometimes it's kind of silly, like, and you'll find yourself sounding silly. I still find it with Jake, like, I don't even know. Just the last time he was home, he like spontaneously cleared the table and put dishes away, right? He's 17, okay? And I found myself saying, wow, Jake, thank you for taking that initiative and putting the dishes away. That's really great. And he's like, oh, and you can just see him build. Like, why wouldn't you build up your kid if they blow their nose properly, if they hold the fork properly? Who cares? You know, anything that is going to build confidence in your kid and at whatever level they are at, you know, I mean, I have all my adults, you know, we have 500 families, right? And I'll see one of my adults at a dance or something, and or at a social event in the community, whatever, and they'll look at me and say, hi, Jen. And I'm like, oh, nice job looking at me and remembering my name, man. Like, that is so cool. And that makes me feel so special. And they're like, hi, Jen. And then they'll say it again, you know, because it's fabulous. But everybody needs to feel valued at whatever level they're at. I don't, you know, and it's really hard for parents, and especially if your kid's in first grade, second grade, third, you know, you're rewarding your child for being able to sit at the table for 20 seconds. I was there. I was that person. But you're at a birthday party and everybody else there, the kids are just glomming on the cake and doing fine, right? But I'm like, oh, he sat for 20 seconds. Oh my God, that's so great. And they just look at you like you're crazy. But it's like, you have to be realistic and you have to um, focus on the positive. I have to, because I have like a serious negative physical reaction when I hear hopeless phrases or pessimism or stuff like that. I like literally have a physical response to negativity, and I can't live there. Um, so I go positive all the time. Sometimes we celebrate stuff that doesn't need to be celebrated, but if there's any moment you have where you can build up your child who is going to have challenges in their life, why not give them a foundation of confidence? And it's okay to be you to start with. And I don't care. Oh, you tied your shoe? Great. That took us 8 years to tie your shoe, man. I'm going to celebrate that. You know, I don't care if you're 18. You know, you just did it. So you really have to kind of just stay in your own little bubble with you and your kid for a while, and it doesn't matter what other people say. And I know it's easy for me to say that. I still am affected by some things that people say, but it's really true. It's between you and your kid and your family, and getting your child to be as independent and as happy as they can. And happy can look like a lot of different things, but celebrate that too. If they're happy emptying the garbage, fabulous. If they're happy cutting the grass, fabulous. If they're only going to be happy when they're a nuclear scientist, fabulous. Help them get there. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's just so, part of me feels so sad for people that are stuck in that approval part.
Yeah.
You know,
But it's easy to, right? I mean, especially with, and this is my bias, with social media showing everybody's highlight reel, it's easy to start feeling inadequate as a parent or as whatever. I mean,
yeah, there needs to almost be a disclaimer on social media that, people only post the great stuff, like you're not going to post. Sometimes I do, because I have a blog that's all really, really positive stuff. But lately it's been some pretty raw emotions and some pretty tough stuff because I need to purge. I need to dump stuff, or I can't carry it. But yeah, social media is tough. Um, but I just try to be, I mean, what you see is what you get. I'm pretty real with everybody. There are some things I don't reveal, but I choose what to reveal. And, yeah, you got to keep it real because not revealing the hard part is a disservice to other parents coming up behind you, you
But
know?
but how can you, and you may not have any tips or tricks for this, but how can you keep it real and not feel so vulnerable so that you feel like you're, oh, you're bearing your throat? You know what I mean? Because people are mean, right?
People are mean. Um, I I do feel vulnerable. Um, and I do feel scared at times. And what's really funny is like I'll write a post, I'll write a story or whatever it is, and I just have to publish it. And then when I go back the next day, I read it and I'm a bawling, blubbering mess. I'm like, holy gosh, that was really deep. Like I really put that out there. But those are the ones that I always get notes back on, like, I can't believe you did this, or way to go for doing this because it's exactly how I feel, but I'm afraid to say it kind of stuff. And sometimes I come off as a witch, and I don't, I can't. I feel like I was so lost in the beginning that all I can do is share as much as I possibly can without embarrassing Jake, um, to help other people. I recently just had a talk where a parent was worried about their older child who wanted to watch Baby Einstein. And then I'm like, really? Who cares, man? Like if that's what they want to do in their room or in their house after being held to such standards to behave at school, and they come home and they want to fall apart and just chill out to Baby Einstein, who cares? Who cares, really? If they're calm, if they're feeling good, if they're happy and not hurting anybody or themselves, why not let them decompress a little bit? Like so many times people put their ego into their kid, and that's a really hard. It just puts the kid behind the eight ball. They're never, it's
And
not.
I would argue, you think about what some of the adults are watching. I would almost argue that Baby Einstein is probably a little better.
Classical music, man. That's right up my alley. And the thing is, it's so funny. Like the pictures just stay there. TV these days and movies, it's every 3 seconds, every 3.5 seconds that picture changes. And for a kid with sensory input issues or attention issues, I mean, Jake, he had a major meltdown over Dora the Explorer, and he told us, he goes, the picture changes too fast. And I'm like,
Wow.
holy cow. So then we counted. I mean, my husband's an editor, right? He knows how many frames are in a second, and I'm like, what? He's totally right. Those are 3.5 seconds. How is any kid supposed to follow what is going on, right? Um,
Holy crap.
yeah, you never think about it, but it's really, really fast. And I think my favorite line that Chris and I have talked about a lot is his needs, not our needs.
Yes.
And that is a really hard thing for a lot of people, even with typical kids, because you don't think your kid should be doing that at that age or whatever. But it's not about you. It's about keeping your child happy and developing in whatever way and whatever path they're on. That doesn't mean without discipline, but that just means if there's something that keeps them happy and calm when they're in a very, very confusing world to begin with, and then you add autism and they can't comprehend the world, like, how dare you judge them for wanting to watch Baby Einstein? So it's I mean, that's a hard one to remember, but that's always the one that's my first one that I give. That's my first thing I always tell him, like, it's his needs, not your needs, and take your ego out of it. It's not a competition to see who's got whatever kid, whatever, it's not competition. And people have a hard time with that. I mean, I did, I went through all these levels. There's a million levels of acceptance you go through raising a disabled child, and I'm conquering one right now, and it just, so then I can speak to the other ones, as I'm knocking them down. I've got some really great mentors that help me. You need someone ahead of you on the path.
So would that be another tip that you would tell parents, is find somebody that you can trust and be open with, and preferably somebody who's gone ahead of you?
Oh, totally. And even at the same, because like I have some mentors that are much older than me, um, that help me a lot. But then I also have the parents where I can call and say, "Oh man," and I can say something to them that you would never say in public. And they're like, "Oh, I feel you. That happened to me yesterday." And I'm like, "Oh, thank God, thank God, thank God, I'm not the only one." Like you lose your filter when you're an autism parent. You just
Or
say
you
it to
can
certain
share how you
people.
really feel, right? Where you don't have the
Yes.
child present, but you can finally get it off your chest.
Yeah, yeah. You have to get that stuff out there. And yeah, because there's things that I tell my fellow autism moms that you don't even tell your family, that because I don't want him being judged on something he can't control. So if I have something really, you have little pockets of people for certain things, and when
And
I'm
that's
really,
not very different, right? I mean, if you take the child with disability out of it, when you were growing up and before you had kids, you had friends, I would think, I know I did, where you had different levels of friendship, right? Where you would share
yeah,
this with this person, but not with this person. And
right, right, and it totally, and those friendships evolve and they develop, and then sometimes they go away. I mean, the one thing I tell Jake all the time, and I don't want to get too churchy, but I always say that God puts the people in your life at the time you need them, and then when you're all done needing them, they'll either stay or they'll go, and that's totally okay. Just take what you can learn from every single person, and go with that. Just take every person that you encounter offers you something, whether it's positive or negative or hurtful. Those are all growing moments, and those are all moments of opportunity to like reflect back and look at yourself like, oh, that's an interesting way to think about that, and why didn't I do that? Or maybe I should try that. And that's okay, but I really think everybody has some purpose in all of our lives, to really grow us. And that's, I mean, Jake
it's
actually
growing our patience so we don't strangle them.
Yeah, right. Totally. Totally. And and he'll say now, he goes, "Well, I can learn from that person, but I don't have to like him, right, Mom?"
True words.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So, and that is okay, because there are people in life that probably don't like me very much, but I can offer some advice, just because I've been through it, and they can take that for what it's worth. I'm just one mom of one kid who's had just extremely complex, and we've pretty much experienced everything, in this journey. We've had the violence, and we've had the aggression, and we've had the suicide threats, and we've had, the near death experiences, and then we've had the amazingness, the public speaking and the accolades and the national recognition, so we every kid, it's such an individual path, and there's so many interesting people and interesting moments to learn things from, and I just don't want people to lose that because they're so beaten down and so tired. It's a hard
So,
spot.
final thought, the last thing I want to talk about is Up County Community Resources.
Yeah.
You have a new YouTube channel, right?
Yes, and
So
it's
people, they
fabulous.
don't have to be in Maryland. They can take part with some of the activities.
Yeah,
Would you
and
mind
yes,
talking about that real quick?
yeah, I'll totally plug it. I'm super excited because when this whole pandemic hit, that threw everybody into a tailspin, right? But the most vulnerable people are most affected by this. They grew up their whole life being isolated. They're finally getting a chance to come to our programs and make friends and feel like they're part of a bigger family, and now they have to stay in their house, right? So I really wanted to come up with a way to reach everybody, but it's also allowed me a way to collaborate with a lot of partners and hopefully offer everything I can in one spot. So if you go to the site, you are there, beautiful Eric, and all of your financial advice is there, which thank you, thank you, thank you. And but there's adaptive exercise and adapted yoga and breathing exercises, and I have our certified music therapist putting up videos with demonstrations. So anybody, these are very expensive programs to take when you're taking them and enrolling and going to them, but we are figuring out a way to pay our therapists to do extra things to put on our YouTube page. So anybody, even someone in a nursing home or someone in an assisted living facility, could log in or have someone log in for them, and they can watch these videos and listen to music and see, they can move in their chairs and, you know, and do that type of movement that maybe they didn't get to do before. And there's also, I have someone putting up financial advice for self-advocates. Like right now, when no one's working and no one's making money, it's very hard to understand for all of us. But if you have someone who's working part-time, you know, 3 hours a week or 3 hours a day, right? And they want Chick-fil-A really bad, but they have a box of chicken nuggets in their freezer, right? You know, way out the money, you know. And so I have someone putting up that information, even just to help people get over this hump. And I hope to keep growing this site and building upon the resources, because there's a ton of resources in our community. And thankfully, I have a good relationship with a lot of my counterparts at a lot of the other nonprofits that all want to help, and they all want, you know, and plus I'm plugging them on the site, you know, so how's that wrong, right? So yes, go to the YouTube site. You can get it from the website. You
Well, I'm
see
gonna include it when I upload this. I'm gonna include the website and the YouTube channel because I want
perfect.
people to understand what you're doing on the YouTube channel costs money, right? So if they want to support you, you
Yeah,
mentioned music therapists, well then they can donate at the website. It doesn't have to be a lot, but every
right.
little
Oh,
bit helps.
exactly. If people knew what we did on my annual budget, I mean, we're on a shoestring, and we've been able to pull out a lot of things, and a wide variety of things, and we're getting a lot of attention for the YouTube page and the development of these new programs and curriculums I'm trying to put up there. So $5 even helps. That helps pay a teacher, or that helps pay, you know, buy the snacks for a fitness class, you know. So really, yeah, anything helps. And we're little, we're small but mighty. So
Well,
I'm
when
even
I
thankful for
upload
them.
this, I will make sure I have your website and the YouTube in the description next to the video,
Okay, awesome,
so we can share
awesome.
that.
Oh, great. Thank
Anything else you want to say before we log off?
you. Just parents, take care of yourself. I'm offering a whole bunch of parent things and nobody signs up. I'm like, seriously, I'm offering free therapy. There's group and there's individual. I took all the questions and posted them as all my questions with the therapist. And that video, a ton of people are watching, so I know a ton of people have questions. So therapy is okay. Talk to people that you can, and just ask for help. You never know, you know, and you never lose anything by asking for help. So do
I
it.
think that's a perfect way to end it right there is ask
Yeah.
for help.
Yep. You have to. Can't do it alone.